Hey everybody, it's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power, your online Bible study where we're walking through the Bible in a year. Today is December 5th and we are studying the book of Acts. Today we're in Acts 27 and I guarantee you that this reading today had something for everyone. And I don't necessarily mean something pleasant. Today I'm talking about something that would just make you go, ooh, I just can't imagine being in that situation. So why I say there is probably something for everyone is this. There was so much adventure and intrigue in the reading today. Paul is under house arrest. He has asked to go to Rome to appeal his case to Caesar. He has been unjustly arrested. He's been in Caesarea for 2 years. He gets on board a ship, and he is now traveling to Rome on a ship. During that time period, or during this trip, we should say, so many incredibly, I won't say awful, but they were really awful things happened on this trip. So if you are someone that doesn't like to swim, this would have been a very hard experience for you. If you are someone that doesn't like snakes, this would have been a very difficult experience for you. If you are someone that doesn't like to swim in cold water, very difficult experience. Or if you're someone when you're traveling, you hate to lose your luggage. This would have been a very difficult experience. I would imagine that we can all find something in this experience where we went, wow, I am not sorry. I missed that. This is a cruise. Let's look at it today like this is Paul's cruise line to Rome. And on his cruise ship, everything that you can imagine goes wrong. Now, before we get into actually what went wrong, as I try to explain to you how horrific it must have actually been, let's look at the bright side. Paul has some companions along with him that bring him great comfort. This Acts 27, this chapter, switches a little bit in the pronouns that are being used, and we understand through this one little word, we. In Acts 27:1, we set sail for Italy. Most scholars believe that means that Luke has now joined Paul and is with him on this ship going to Rome. We also understand that there is a man named Aristarchus, and he was mentioned today. He went as Paul's helper. This man is a very loyal man, probably a very good friend. We read about him in other places in Scripture that say that he stayed with Paul when he was in Rome under house arrest. So it is very comforting to be traveling with friends. It's very comforting when you're traveling and undergoing difficult circumstances when you're with people that care for you. This was Paul's situation. Another good thing with Paul is that he had Roman officers that were kind of guarding him. He was a prisoner, but Julius, the Roman officer that was in charge of transporting him and getting him safely to Rome, was pretty kind to him. That must have been a blessing beyond compare. I mean, he was kind. He granted Paul a lot of leeway, and that was very good. The date of this trip, this cruise that we're talking about, is late fall, and from what I can garner in the readings and the study that I did, it said that in the fall was a very, very dangerous time for people to be traveling. This was probably one of the last ships that would have set sail in this direction for the winter. So they're cutting it awful close. There is danger in the time of year that they're sailing, and it's approaching winter and not a very good time to be traveling, evidently, in this part of the world. They're on a ship. It's a pretty big ship. We understand there were 276 people on board. including other prisoners. So Paul wasn't the only prisoner, and they were all going, the ship was going to Rome. That was the destination. Now, we understand this was not the largest ship that was capable of sea travel at this time. There were ships in that day, historians have written about, Josephus has written about, that contained or had the capacity to have 600 people on board. So 276 isn't the biggest ship, but that's still a lot of people to be traveling with, as you can imagine. As they're traveling, all of a sudden they come upon a nor'easter. Okay, we can understand this to mean a hurricane. A hurricane has come upon them. These are gale force winds. They're in this little ship. Well, it's a big ship, but nonetheless, they are having to throw stuff overboard. They, I think it mentioned a cargo of wheat, of grain. This ship was probably a grain cargo ship because Egypt at the time now is considered Rome's breadbasket. So it was probably transporting wheat, berries, grain from Egypt into Rome. This is the kind of cargo that they are throwing overboard. Ladies, if you were on this ship, and I don't know if there were any ladies on the ship, but if you were on the ship and they came to you and they said, "We got to throw stuff overboard, give me your suitcase," that would be, I mean, how hard would that be to kind of give that up? But that's kind of what the situation is. It's so bad, they are in this storm for 14 days. This is 2 weeks of the ship moving violently. So once you get the heaves, you can't get rid of them. And it said that, the people aren't eating, and they haven't eaten for a very long time. Can you imagine being nauseous on a ship for 2 weeks in the middle of a hurricane, and your stuff's being thrown overboard, and you're really not sure that you're going to make it? There was a part, I believe, there was a part in the reading, I'm not sure if it was today or not. Oh, yes, it was. In verse 20 of Acts 27, it says, all hope was gone. Everyone on the ship but Paul probably did believe they weren't going to live through this experience. Paul, as you recall, had a vision from Jesus prior to this that said, this was back when he was in Jerusalem before he was arrested, that he would make it to Rome. He, because of that encounter, he had the confidence that they would be okay. But he also received another vision that we've not talked about yet on the ship. An angel of God comes to him, and who knows where he is in the ship, but he sees this vision in the middle of a hurricane, and it says, don't be afraid. There it is again. Don't be afraid. Paul must have been afraid many, many times because, Jesus keeps reiterating to him not to be afraid. And it says, you will surely stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So Paul knew, because he believed this word from the angel, that everyone would be alive. However, the others didn't receive that same revelation, and they were fearing for their life at this point. What ends up happening is that they run the ship aground. And that would have been scary in and of itself. Can you imagine being on a cruise ship that runs itself aground? Everybody has to jump overboard, if you can swim or not. Jump overboard, and then you have to swim your way to the nearest island. They do this, and this island is Malta. This is where they are. Everyone's jumped overboard. They're swimming to shore, and I've given you a map today to kind of understand the route that they took, and I wanted to share this with you. Notice on the map, it's not the most direct route, but there was a really good reason for that. You see, the winds blew west to east at this part of the Mediterranean. So they had to sail close to land and take the longer route, if you will. They couldn't just go through the sea, and there was a much more direct route. Traveling from Rome to Jerusalem, since the winds are blowing west to east, they can go the more direct route. But they had to kind of stay close to the shoreline in this case because they were sailing east to west. 3 times Paul was shipwrecked during his ministry. This was probably the last time. So he's been through this experience twice before. This might have been the most difficult, we don't know. But in Scripture, in 2 Corinthians 11:25, it says he'd been shipwrecked 3 times. So in this place that he ends up on Malta, he ends up getting bitten by a snake, which would have been awful. It was a poisonous snake, but God protects him. Everyone else thinks the man's going to die, but that's what God used to kind of let everyone see, oh, this man is different. He heals a lot of people from their sickness on the island of Malta, and they end up being shipwrecked for 3 months before another ship comes. They board that ship, and that's actually how they end up getting to Rome. So very difficult couple of weeks here on this ship, and certainly a couple of months being stranded. In this place, though, notice that Paul is making the most of every opportunity. He's witnessing. He is demonstrating how it is that you can live out your faith in the midst of a very difficult opportunity. He had peace, while the others did not have a lot of peace in this difficult circumstance. So this was Paul's journey to Rome. He's not there yet, but he does eventually make it to Rome. And tomorrow we're going to get into a new book, the letter to the Ephesians, and I will explain to you tomorrow kind of when he's writing this letter, what are his circumstances once he gets to Rome and his living conditions. So that's what we'll be covering tomorrow. I hope this lesson was enjoyable to you today. I hope that you will join me again tomorrow. Blessings to you. Shalom.